Some men become stronger when they disappear. Others disappear because they are becoming weaker. From the outside, both men look alone, but one is studying, building, training, making decisions, and preparing to return with proof. The other is scrolling, replaying insults, avoiding difficult work, and calling his withdrawal solitude. Being alone is not discipline. It is only the absence of witnesses. You may have been trained to believe that because the world misunderstood you, withdrawing from it made you deep. It did not. Sometimes withdrawal is strategy. Sometimes it is fear with more dignified language. Bill Gates used what he called a think week during his years at Microsoft. For 7 days, he isolated himself in a cabin with books and technical papers. He read, thought, and wrote about the future. He did not even check email. His solitude had an assignment. It had boundaries, and it produced ideas that could be brought back into the company. Centuries earlier, after Niccolo Machiavelli lost political office and was pushed away from the center of Florentine power, he created a nightly ritual. He entered his study. He examined ancient rulers. He questioned their decisions. He recorded what he learned. Then he converted those hours into a work he called On Principalities, the text later known as The Prince. The difference is cold. Strategic solitude returns with evidence. Destructive isolation returns with explanations. And most men will not recognize which one they are practicing until several years have disappeared. The danger is not loneliness. The danger is spending years alone without producing one asset, one decision, or one body of proof that changes your position. A man can live alone, work alone, train alone, and still become weaker every month. He can fill notebooks, save videos, make plans, and tell himself he is preparing. Yet if nothing leaves the room, nothing changes outside it. His employer still sees replaceable labor. The market still sees no offer. His family still sees the same man they saw last year. Private ambition without public evidence remains private fantasy. The hidden mechanism is governance. Solitude does not sharpen you because it is quiet. It sharpens you only when the silence is governed by a mission, limited by time, protected from distraction, and forced to produce something reality can judge. This is where ambitious men deceive themselves. They call themselves solitary because the word sounds controlled, lonely sounds rejected, isolated sounds damaged, solitary sounds powerful. It can turn avoidance into identity. But a closed door can hide fear of judgment, unfinished work, broken routines, rejection sensitivity, and the embarrassment of being seen as a beginner. It can hide consumption behind the language of research, resentment behind the language of peace, and indecision behind the language of patience. Machiavelli wrote, "Men never behave well unless compelled." He was writing about political order, not personal productivity. But the structural truth remains. When behavior has no governing force, immediate desire defeats long-term interest. A man says he will write, but there is no deadline. He says he will study, but there is no defined subject. He says he needs time to think, but there is no decision that must be made. A room does not make you focused. Silence does not make you disciplined. Pain does not make you profound. Being alone is only a condition. Strength depends on what you do inside it. Research involving 2,035 adolescents, adults, and older adults examined how people experience time alone. The researchers distinguished self-directed solitude from harmful isolation. When solitude felt chosen, people reported more positive experiences. When routine collapsed, inactivity increased and alienation grew, the experience became worse. The study was about well-being, not wealth or power. It does not prove that a quiet room will make you successful. It proves something more useful. Chosen solitude and uncontrolled isolation are not the same psychological condition. Choice matters because it creates ownership. But choice alone is not enough. A man can voluntarily choose the habit that weakens him. He can shut the door, silence his phone, then spend 3 hours avoiding the one task that could expose his current level. The real distinction is whether his aloneness is governed, directed, productive, and connected to reality. Strategic solitude has an entrance and an exit. It begins for a reason. It ends at a defined time. It has one assignment. It removes noise that competes with that assignment. It produces an artifact or a decision. Then it returns to reality for feedback. Destructive isolation begins with discomfort. The man withdraws because he feels behind, misunderstood, exhausted, or ashamed of weak results. By leaving the room, he removes judgment. But he also removes deadlines, correction, and consequences. Passive consumption enters the vacuum. Hours lose boundaries. Thoughts repeat themselves. Work remains unfinished. Because nothing is tested, imagination becomes the only court in which his plans are judged. Inside his mind, every unfinished idea can remain brilliant. Every avoided risk can be called patience. Every fear can be renamed intuition. Every lack of evidence can be blamed on being misunderstood. This is how a man can feel powerful while becoming less capable. If you are the man who is tired of consuming clarity without converting it into position, stop collecting ideas you never operationalize. You already know nobody is coming to rescue your ambition, but your real problem is deciding what skill to build, what proof to create, and what to execute first. If you keep mistaking information for progress, another year will disappear without leverage. Depths of psyche helps you see reality clearly. The leverage map shows you what to build with that clarity, the skill path, proof project, and execution plan that fit your current situation. This is not for men looking for another motivational escape. It is for men ready to turn private ambition into public evidence. The decision is yours. Now, look at Bill Gates. Daily leadership at Microsoft created constant interruption. Meetings, reports, urgent decisions, technical debates, and demands from thousands of people fragmented attention. A man can remain active all day and still lose the ability to think beyond the day. Gates created an annual 7-day retreat in a cabin on Washington's Hood Canal. He brought books and technical papers. He removed email. He read, thought, and wrote about the future of technology and Microsoft. The retreat was valuable because his withdrawal had an assignment. He entered with defined questions, protected the conditions required to examine them, and produced written thinking that could return to the company for criticism and decision-making. The proof was not that he survived 7 days alone. The proof was what he carried back. That is the first law of strategic solitude. Remove noise only after defining what the silence is for. A weak man disappears because pressure overwhelms him. A strategic man disappears because he has selected a problem that deserves undivided thought. But Gates entered solitude from a position of enormous power. He had money, authority, employees, and access. That raises a harder question. What happens when fortune removes your title, your access, and your place inside the room? In 1512, the Medici returned to power in Florence. Machiavelli lost the political office he had held under the Florentine Republic. He was no longer conducting diplomatic missions or standing near political decisions. He had been removed from the arena where his intelligence mattered. This is where many men build an identity around what was taken from them. They replay the injustice, study their enemies, fantasize about recognition, and wait for someone to restore the position they lost. Machiavelli could not reverse his condition immediately. So he governed what remained. His evenings, his attention, his reading, his writing. In a letter to Francesco Vettori written in December of 1513, Machiavelli described returning home in the evening, removing his ordinary clothes, dressing in courtly garments, and entering his study. There he entered what he called the ancient courts of ancient men. For 4 hours he questioned historical rulers about their actions and recorded what he learned. Then came the evidence. He wrote, "I have noted everything in their conversation which has profited me and have composed a little work on principalities." That work became The Prince. He did not leave Solitude claiming that he had thought deeply. He left with a manuscript. Machiavelli could not control the political change that removed him. He could control whether exile became wasted time or intellectual power. Fortune narrowed his field of action. It did not eliminate the field. He later wrote, "Fortune is the arbiter of one half of our actions, but she still leaves us to direct the other half." The fraction is not a scientific measurement. It is a strategic doctrine. Circumstance has power, but not total power. Position can be taken. Income can disappear. Approval can be withdrawn. Access can close. Yet some territory usually remains: attention, time, judgment, skill, and the ability to produce. Isolation says, "I have been removed, therefore I can do nothing." Strategic solitude says, "My field of action has narrowed. I will concentrate force inside what remains." You are not powerful because nothing can be taken from you. Something can always be taken. Power begins when you identify what fortune has not yet controlled and convert it into capacity. But capacity hidden forever inside a private room does not change public position. At some point, the work must leave the room. The world does not judge private intention. It judges visible consequence. Visible consequence is the language the world understands. You may possess intelligence nobody recognizes, skill nobody has seen, and ideas nobody believes. But hidden value is often treated as non-existent value. This feels unfair only until you understand the incentive. An employer cannot promote potential he cannot measure. A client cannot buy competence he cannot evaluate. An audience cannot share an idea that was never published. A serious ally cannot build with a man whose promises exist only inside private ambition. Until potential becomes evidence, other people must accept all the risk of believing you. Most will not. This is not always hatred. It is not always jealousy. It is often uncertainty. People trust visible proof because proof reduces the cost of being wrong about you. Machiavelli wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand." He continued, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few really know what you are." He was writing about political reputation and the way rulers are judged. The modern lesson is not to fabricate success. It is to make real competence visible. Convert knowledge into a demonstration. Convert thought into a decision. Convert skill into a portfolio. Convert planning into an offer. Convert discipline into a record that exists outside your imagination. Your private ambition says one thing, your unfinished work says another. The world usually believes the unfinished work. This is why every period of strategic solitude must end with one of two things: an artifact or a decision. An artifact can be a draft, a recording, a proposal, a design, a completed application, a work log, a portfolio sample, a sales page, a financial review, or a practice demonstration. A decision can be what you will stop funding, which project you will abandon, what offer you will test, what skill you will prioritize, what opportunity you will reject, or what action will happen next. Do not ask whether the session felt meaningful. Ask whether it produced anything that can survive outside your mind. Many men understand this and still fail. They enter the room with a mission. Then discomfort arrives. The difficult paragraph exposes weak thinking. The sales offer forces them to face the possibility of rejection. The application reminds them they may still be unqualified. The recording makes their lack of skill audible, so they reach for the phone. They call it a break. Then they research. They call it preparation. Then they organize files, redesign the plan, watch another expert, and wait for confidence. The real problem is not a lack of information. Their solitude has no authority. The destructive loop usually begins with pressure. A man feels behind. He feels misunderstood. He feels ashamed that his current results do not match the identity he carries privately. He withdraws to recover control. Then he scrolls. Scrolling creates comparison. Comparison creates agitation. Agitation creates overthinking. Overthinking delays action. Delayed action reduces self-trust. Reduced self-trust makes reality feel more threatening. So he withdraws further. Pressure becomes withdrawal. Withdrawal becomes consumption. Consumption becomes rumination. Rumination becomes avoidance. Avoidance lowers confidence. Lower confidence creates deeper withdrawal. He tells himself he is protecting his peace. In reality, he is protecting his weaknesses from measurement. Watch the signs. Your sleep deteriorates. Your days lose boundaries. Consumption replaces production. Necessary conversations remain avoided. Work stays unfinished. You feel less capable after being alone. You resent reality more while understanding it less. Nothing is tested. Nothing is corrected. Nothing changes position. The man who hides from measurement is not protecting his potential. He is preserving a fantasy. Machiavelli wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved when, of the two, either must be dispensed with." His subject was political obedience, not personal routine. But one narrow principle applies. What feels emotionally pleasant is conditional. What has a defined consequence is more reliable. Do not build your work around whether you love the task that day. Build it around rules decided before emotion enters the room. The work block does not end until the draft exists. Entertainment begins after the asset is completed. A missed session is rescheduled before optional consumption. The output is sent to a serious reviewer at a fixed time. The work enters reality on a scheduled date. The consequence does not need to be extreme. It needs to be clear enough that the weaker version of you cannot renegotiate the entire session. Strategic solitude depends on 4 conditions. The first is choice. You deliberately enter the period. You are not disappearing because someone rejected you. You are not avoiding a conversation. You are not hiding because being seen as a beginner threatens your identity. You choose when to withdraw, why to withdraw, what you will work on, and when you will return. Enter solitude by decision, not emotional retreat. The second condition is structure. Before the session begins, define the start time, end time, location, task, rules, and expected output. Do not say, "I will work on my business." That is not a command. It is an atmosphere. Say, "From 7 in the evening until 8:30, I will produce the first complete draft of 1 sales offer. My phone will remain outside the room. Research will be limited to the first 15 minutes. A schedule removes negotiation from the hour. Machiavelli observed that effective forces had to be trained and exercised before the crisis arrived. The application is simple. You do not create discipline at the exact moment you desperately need it. You create repeated conditions that make disciplined action easier to reproduce. The third condition is production. The session must create evidence, not emotional relief, not a collection of open browser tabs, not 10 saved videos, not another page of motivational language. Evidence, 1 decision, 1 draft, one completed work block, one practiced skill, one measurable result. Never leave solitude with only thoughts. The fourth condition is re-entry. Solitude cannot determine the value of what solitude produced. Reality must do that. Return and seek market response, customer feedback, performance data, a serious critique, or a measurable outcome. This is where many isolated men fail. They enjoy creation only while creation remains protected from judgment. But an asset that never enters the world is still serving avoidance. Solitude creates the asset. Reality determines whether the asset has value. You are not building a cave, you are building a workshop. A cave protects you from the world. A workshop prepares what you will bring back into it. Now convert these conditions into one repeatable operating system. First, define the mission. Write one sentence. This solitude block exists to produce. Then complete it with one target, one video outline, one portfolio sample, one business offer, one strategic decision, 1 hour of deliberate skill practice with recorded results, one proposal, one completed application. Do not select 3 missions. Multiple priorities allow you to escape one difficult task by touching another. Your first act of control is selection. Second, time box the session. A minimum block can be 25 minutes. A standard block can be 60 to 90 minutes. A deep block can last 2 to 4 hours. Choose the period you can govern. Do not use an ambitious duration to create the fantasy of seriousness. Solitude must have an entrance and an exit. Without an exit, work expands, attention weakens, and the room slowly changes from a workshop into a hiding place. Third, remove false solitude. Being physically alone while receiving constant digital noise is not solitude. The crowd is still inside the room. It is entering through a screen. Remove social media, notifications, random videos, passive podcasts, unnecessary messaging, and content unrelated to the mission. Information becomes avoidance when it allows you to delay producing something that can be judged. Fourth, produce one proof asset. It may be imperfect. Perfection is not the requirement. Existence is. An imperfect asset can be corrected. An imagined asset cannot. Fifth, keep one strategic connection. Total self-sufficiency is not strength. It is fragility disguised as pride. Maintain access to one serious peer, mentor, client, collaborator, trusted critic, or accountability partner. The purpose is not validation. The purpose is correction. Machiavelli did not develop his political understanding by staring only into himself. He studied history, observed rulers, spoke with ordinary men, corresponded with political figures, and tested thought against events. Strategic solitude is connected solitude. Sixth, review the evidence. What did you produce? What decision became clearer? What distraction was removed? What remains weak? What will be tested? When will you return and act? Do not allow the word later to remain undefined. The system ends only when the output meets reality. Before you call your solitude strategic, ask 7 questions. Did I choose this period deliberately, or did I react to discomfort? Does it have a defined beginning and end? Is there one clear mission? Have I removed noise unrelated to that mission? Will this session produce an artifact or decision? Who or what will test the output? When will I re-enter reality? If you cannot answer these questions, you do not have a system. You have an intention. Strategic men do not possess more hours than everyone else. They protect higher value uses of those hours. They use uninterrupted time to read beyond headlines, examine costly mistakes without defending themselves, separate important decisions from emotional noise, identify where time and money are leaking, build intellectual property, prepare before opportunities appear, and create proof before seeking attention. They do not use solitude to replay insults, fantasize about revenge, consume endless motivation, avoid difficult conversations, wait for confidence, or pretend withdrawal itself is discipline. The advantage is not spending more time alone. The advantage is demanding that uninterrupted time produce something worthy of protection. If you are a man who has stopped looking for comfort and is ready to confront the structure beneath your results, stop mistaking free content for a complete system. You already know clarity matters, but your real problem is sustaining execution when nobody is watching and pressure returns. If you keep consuming severe truths without building a disciplined operating structure, you will become more informed while remaining in the same position. Inside Patreon, you get access to deeper, unfiltered material on discipline, leverage, power, and execution, so you can convert understanding into a repeatable way of operating. This is not for men who want reassurance without responsibility. It is for men willing to submit their habits, excuses, and decisions to a harder standard. The decision is yours. Stop romanticizing disappearance. Being unreachable is not power. Being productive without applause is. Isolation consumes time. Strategic solitude concentrates it. Isolation repeats pain. Strategic solitude converts pressure into output. Isolation hides from reality. Strategic solitude prepares to re-enter it with greater force. Do not measure how long you stayed alone. Measure what your solitude produced. Tonight, choose one block, give it one mission, remove the noise, create one artifact, put it in front of reality. Then let the evidence tell you whether you are becoming stronger or merely becoming harder to reach. Withdraw briefly, build something real, return with proof.